Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on leveraging AI in today's logistics landscape. My name is Allison Schroer, and I'm the Senior Manager of Global Trade Services for Scarbrough Consulting. Our panelists today will be discussing AI's place in the logistics industry and how it can be used to help importers identify problem areas in their supply chain. We will specifically discuss how Altana's technology allows Scarbrough to give its customers enhanced visibility of their global value chains to proactively identify and avoid potential disruptions. So please let me introduce our panelists. We have Amy Morgan, VP and Head of Trade Compliance for Altana, and Adam Hill, CEO of Scarbrough Global. So to get this started here, Adam, the first questions are for you. Can you share the motivation behind Scarborough's partnership with Altana and what gaps in the logistics and trade compliance space does this partnership aim to address?
Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Amy, for being here and joining us today. And hello to all of you on the other side of the screen. Like Allison said, my name's Adam Hill. I'm the CEO here at Scarbrough Global, and I'm very excited to be here with Amy. Amy and I sat on a panel about a year ago. I don't think we'd ever met before then, and I've certainly been impressed ever since. So I'm very excited to sit here and have this conversation with you, Amy. So I guess I can answer Allison's question to try to stay on topic here, but as the world has flipped on its head in the last 5 years. And I think that's a very normal thing in not only logistics, but truly in trade compliance. And trade compliance professionals are being asked to do more and more and more. And if you look across our customer base, I think if you just look at the landscape in general, there are more and more companies that trade compliance is looked at like a cost center and doesn't get the resources it needs to truly do what it needs to do. And so for us and Altana, sitting down and looking through where do we see some of those gaps for some of our own client base, not because they don't want to, not because they don't have the ability, but simply they don't have the bandwidth or the man-woman power to pull something like this off. And so and sitting on that panel with Amy a year ago and truly understanding what Altana is bringing with artificial intelligence and kind of bringing to the forefront of what is truly, unique, best-in-class product that we've certainly ever seen. In sitting down with them and working over probably 6 months to get them to pull a product together that makes sense for the likes of most of our client base and not a large Fortune 500 multinational company but someone who's maybe doing a few thousand entries a year. And, what does your supply chain look like? And for us, we know a lot of our customers know they're tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, but beyond that, information gets sketchy at best. And that's truly where we started to find the partnership with Amy and her team at Altana started to shed some light on truly the supply chain for our clients. And obviously Altana's partnership with U.S. Customs and Border Protection was a big piece of that conversation. For us, obviously we want to be on the forefront, and if U.S. Customs is using technology to look at, and for the word I'm not supposed to say about the government, but truly build a profile, right, on you as an importer, why not have the same tools at our disposal and then at your disposal as a customer?
Yeah, it's been a big selling point for sure to be able to let our clients know you're going to see the same information Customs is saying. It's huge. So Amy, can you explain how Altana's platform specifically helps Scarbrough customers identify risks within their global value chains?
I sure can. So thank you for inviting me to participate that panel we were on a year ago, Adam. It was a joy for me as well. It was a great panel at WestCon. So thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for trusting us and working with us for our partnership. So yeah, so what Scarborough's doing specifically is they are now using Altana's platform. They're empowered to offer new and exciting value-added services to their importer clients. So there's lots of different and interesting things that Altana does, but to start, through this relationship, Scarborough is now able to screen client transactions to assess the new or existing suppliers across multiple tiers of their product value chains. So said another way, although the importer may only know who the direct supplier is, we can still use Altana's platform to illuminate the multi-tier value chain that supports that transaction. So this capability is actually necessary to identify upstream risks, such as those related to forced labor and other compliance concerns. Okay, so with these insights, Scarborough helps their clients take proactive action to manage and mitigate those issues that could manifest as frustrating and expensive compliance problems later. So essentially, Altana's platform acts as a shared source of truth that offers tailored insights and improved risk mitigation that empowers Scarborough and their clients and clients of all sizes, which is what excites me the most, with confidence and ability to maintain secure, compliant product value chains. Did I capture it?
I mean,
okay.
I think you nailed it. And I think what's interesting for us is that we have taken something that I think most people think is out of reach and really put it in reach for the everyday importer. And that's a huge thing. And one of the things that I like that obviously we were talking a little bit here right before we started is customs is, especially in the US today, but if we look beyond that, the EU, Canada, everybody's coming up with their own version of this, right? And so how do we stay out in front of it? And, we can tell some horror stories about customers whose supply chain was clean, but maybe they had a supplier that customs flagged and it took 6 to 9 months to get their product, even though they were okay, right? There was no problems. Everything was perfect. It took 6 to 9 months. And if anybody knows, a container sitting in the port of LA for 6 to 9 months is not an inexpensive adventure.
I like, Amy, how you said the word illuminate. To me, that kind of stood out because that's really, your upstream supply chain is in the dark. And I love how Altana sheds the light on all that for our clients. So the next question is for the both of you. In light of recent trade compliance challenges, particularly with the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, how critical is it for companies to adopt advanced technology like Altana's to stay compliant?
Almost kind of feel like I knew the question, but I didn't actually know it. For us, if customs is building this profile on you, and customs is looking at your supply chain, not tier 1, but tier 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as kind of deep as it goes in this conversation, you as the importer need to have this information as well. And I think the technology, I would love to hear Amy talk a little bit more about like the tech side of this, right? Like we can talk a little bit more about how we bring it more to the mass market, but how you all have developed some of the tech that sits behind this and what's so exciting around how this all looks. I'd love to hear.
Oh, yeah. You wind me up and just point me in a direction and I'll go all day long.
Here we go.
But so I'll answer the question and then I'll answer Adam's part of the question. So absolutely, it's critical, right? The need to adopt advanced technology like Altana's or others in today's compliance landscape cannot be overstated. And it's not just because of forced labor and like regulations around the world. As we navigate this increasingly complex environment with countries all over the world implementing new trade regulations, focused on everything from human rights to environmental measures, the need for this multi-tier product value chain knowledge is necessary now. It used to be a nice to have, now it's required. Companies are now required to understand their products' value chains from the raw materials to the production, to the sale, to the end use. Adam already mentioned that we need these insights to check not only forced labor exposures, but you've got de minimis reforms ahead of us. We've got CBP's GBI initiative, not to mention the European Green Deal legislation such as CBAM or EUDR, so the carbon and the deforestation initiatives. You've got digital product passports and all, the list just goes on, but it keeps coming back to the product, right? But unfortunately, speaking as a trade compliance person myself, our legacy systems and our processes just don't allow for that level of knowledge today, right? Most of us aren't equipped to access multi-level or multi-tier product level information at scale because we never needed to. It was an edge case. It was a trade program validation, or you're being audited, or there was something very specific, right? And this is where artificial intelligence steps in as a really transformative and promising productivity tool just when we need it the most. Now, you wanted me to get a little technical. I am a trade nerd. I am not an engineer, but I can speak in some basics about what I think is the most important piece of AI that it brings to our community. And I didn't realize this before coming to Altana, but AI is very well suited to support the complexities of global trade and supply chain activity, thanks to its superpower of being able to pull together mass volumes of disparate data from across multiple systems and pull it all together regardless of language, regardless of complexity, and start to identify patterns and help it make sense in a way that we can use it to maybe it's do our trade activity work better, smarter, faster. In some cases, some companies want to automate it altogether. But that's really where AI has this great value. So what Altana has done is we've done that very thing. We've built a map of the global supply chain. We use AI to pull together mass volumes of trade data from all over the world, and we stitch it together into one nice, clean map. So now you can see all the different trade activities going on all over the world, so that when a customer wants to screen their transactions, they just plug into the map. And they do that by sharing maybe their tier one supplier, or there's different ways we can do it, but let's go with that. And then I used Illuminate earlier intentionally because we're not building a map. We are not doing a mapping exercise. We're illuminating the work that we've already done that's relevant to that company's business. I hope, do you want me to go deeper than that, or does that help?
I think you nailed it. I think that, AI is it's a buzzword, right? Like everyone's all excited, and I always laughed. I saw like a cartoon the other day that the side of the yacht said AI, and the person said, how'd you get it expensed? And it's because the name of the yacht said AI on it, and everyone's putting all this money and ideas behind artificial intelligence. But it is a garbage in, garbage out scenario. But I think the most interesting thing that we've been seeing as we've been running through this now for about a year is it does truly illuminate some very interesting things. And I mean, we've had people literally stop dead in their tracks in a conversation that said, no, I know my supply chain's clean. And 2 minutes later, we're able to show them a map that says it might not be as clean as you think. Yeah. And, and I think probably more so in the US than other places, are kind of built around this idea that we take our supplier at their word. No, we don't use forced labor. Well, if we truly think about the idea of forced labor, ethically, morally, we have lots of problems with it. But my assumption is those people may not also be the most truthful group out there either, right? So you kind of stack those two things on top of one another, and it gets very interesting very, very quickly.
That's for sure. Amy, could you elaborate a little more on how Altana enables U.S. Customs and Border Protection to enforce UFLPA compliance? I think this kind of goes right in with what you were just talking about.
I will tell you as much as I can tell you.
Ooh, okay.
But in June of 2023, CBP awarded Altana a multi-year contract to serve as the foundational map of their global supply chain. So they're using us as the foundational map. This is what the world looks like. And from there, Altana then helps CBP officers analyze the highly messy data that they get every day through the through entries, right? To and use Altana to help improve the targeting, or help influence targeting, I should say, not improve, but to influence their targeting. And they do that so that they can triage and prioritize their enforcement actions, right? And that way they are in a position where they can collaborate with the stakeholders across that are moving the goods across the borders, whether it's you, I say you because I'm looking at your right in your eyes, Adam, or whether it's your clients or it's their supplier or what have you, right? With the intention of stopping the flow of goods that could be made with forced labor. So with Altana, CBP can integrate additional data sets. They have the ability to do that. They can bring data from other sources, other analytics, to influence what they're looking at, to influence what those value chains look like when they're using Altana to enhance their targeting. We'll say that. And then from there, they can use that to help figure out what kind of information is needed to rebut the presumption. But that's really it. The way that it was intended was to help them improve their targeting, so they aren't unnecessarily stopping things that don't need to be stopped. Well, we know that's a struggle, different issue, different topic that is being addressed separately, but that gives you the gist of the original arrangement.
Very good. I neglected to mention earlier, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We may have a few minutes at the end for some Q&A. So please shoot your questions our direction. Amy, next one. Could you share any success stories or case studies where Altana's technology helped a client avoid potential pitfalls? And how did they leverage Altana and what were the outcomes?
Yeah, so I could go all day with case studies. We have some really fascinating case studies and some exciting ones too. And that's really what motivates my work every day, is knowing we're making the world a better place, one company at a time, right? But I'll share a quick one because I knew this was a quick session. And we do have many that are specific to forced labor. It is one of our most requested use cases, though I will say that interest is broadening as more companies discover the diverse applications of a value chain, okay? So for instance, there's classification and audit automation and restricted party screening. There's all these things, but I'm going to tell you a quick forced labor story. And of course, as you can all appreciate, no company wants us to mention their name when it comes to forced labor. They don't want to be in the same sentence. So I will not be naming this client, but I promise you they're real. They are a large apparel retailer. Okay, they in the earliest days of UFLPA enforcement, they racked up over $1 million in unexpected charges because nobody really knew what to expect. They didn't understand how lengthy the delays were going to be, the lost sales, the person hours required to collect the documentation and all of these things. So to mitigate any further detention and cost while maintaining their compliance and upholding their ethical standards. This company is very well known for having a high ethics bar. They partnered with Altana. So they situated their internal product knowledge. They took everything that they knew about their products and their tier one suppliers, and if they knew their extended suppliers, that too. But for the most part, it was the products, and here's who we're buying them from. They situated them inside our map, and that's where they illuminated the value chains for all of those products, right? I use that word illuminate again, so that now they have this clean, clear, unified view of not only the network, so here are the parties we're doing business with, but it's the actual multi-tier value chain, so the steps in the chain that took that product from raw materials to a finished good. So they went as far out as their tier 4, they were able to map to the tier 4 to get to their raw materials. And they did all of that within 2 weeks. Okay. And then within 4 months, they had screened over 1,000 products. They had mapped 7,500 plus new suppliers, and they had flagged high-risk suppliers under UFLPA. They hadn't confirmed that they were truly valid hits, but these are potential exposures, okay? Mm-hmm. So Altana's insights then allowed them to comply with the UFLPA, reduce their penalties, adopt a proactive approach to sourcing and supplier monitoring. In some cases, that means severing supplies with certain severing relationships with certain suppliers, or seeking alternative suppliers or other business decisions like that, or even working with them to fix the problem or the potential problem. So that's a quick one. There's lots more where that came from, though. So
That's a great one. That's fantastic.
I think the other thing that's really interesting, if you think about this as the end user, and right now most people are thinking about it as far as UFLPA, or maybe we're starting to get into fentanyl tracking or some of the things that, and that's all about inbound product to the US. And I think there's a lot of case, but what about those of you who are exporters, right? And we're exporting something, and we're always concerned about that end use. And I mean, Allison and I have a couple of horror stories from customers where, we had a customer where, law enforcement showed up with one of their items and set it on their desk, and they said, "Do you know where we got this?" And it was, they're like, "No, I don't know. We sell those all over the world." And they came back and they said, "Oh, we brought that back from Iran." And they're like, "Wait a minute, that wasn't never supposed to be in Iran." And so, but that conversation around, who's selling to who, selling to who, selling to who, I think that isn't even truly a conversation that I think exporters are starting to think about yet, is with those end use statements and saying you can't ship this on, and it's trying to protect yourself, providing a little bit more insight into those people to say, maybe this isn't a great sale for me as product leaves the country as well. And I think we're just now starting to have some of those conversations, because everything has been so focused on the import side. And I guess my other question to you, and I know the answer to this, but this is more than just textiles. And I think that's where everyone gets hung up, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, this is textiles. I don't import textiles. I don't have to worry about this. And I don't think people truly understand how large this region is and kind of what comes behind it then, right? Is it shared ownership? Is it, and as those things, and I think I love the word that you use, that you truly do illuminate what's going on. And all of a sudden you realize that you might not be buying from supplier X, but you're buying from supplier Y, who both happen to be owned by the same entity 100%. And you're like, a lot of companies do a lot of work in that space around, how do we keep our liabilities separate, right? And so I think it's just another way to truly kind of open the eyes of the importing public to say, where do we have some risk?
Importing public, I love that you brought up exports. Increased sanctions are all over the place. And if you don't know, we've all grown up in this industry learning, well, you've got to know your customer, and you're supposed to know your customer's customer. And if you have reason to believe that that customer could be selling something to a bad actor, that's your responsibility to vet. And with new technologies like ours and others, reason to believe starts to change its meaning a little bit, right? There are tools that can help you like almost like X-ray specs, right? To see through the whatever your customer is telling you. And maybe the customer doesn't know that they're selling to a distributor that's selling to somebody else that's selling, and so forth. So these are actually really exciting use cases for AI, let alone the bad reputation that AI gets as being a very trendy buzzword. This is a very relevant use case. And I think trade compliance people, supply chain people, we have the most to gain from this almost. It's like we've been untouched by advanced technology forever and ever and ever, and then boom, suddenly we get all of the technology.
Here comes. For sure.
Yeah, I haven't looked in the most recent tariff update, but I still don't think the word computer is in the tariff. Right?
So processing machine, isn't it? Still
right, it's still
processing machine.
Yeah.
That's good. So Adam, how do you see Altana's technology benefiting our clients, and what feedback have you received from our clients on our new partnership with Altana?
I think we've had a lot of positive feedback, and I think we're just truly starting to tap the surface, right, of kind of what's out there. I think our suppliers are getting, or our customers are kind of getting their eyes open to their own supplier. It's always been such a commercially private thing between an importer and their supplier, right? And a lot of companies ask us, they're like, well, I file manifest confidentiality here in the US, and so my data, you can't find it. And then we just hit a button and we pop it up and we can show them. And they're like, how does it happen? Right. And I think there's so much about the visibility of kind of what's next and what's what is truly further upstream that our importers are starting to really open their eyes. And then you start talking about sanctions, you start talking about FDA alerts on certain products, right? I mean, we've got some folks in the medical industry, and you start running into things like the medical gloves, or you start thinking about anti-dumping and kind of what, yeah, there's reduced cases for certain suppliers, but is that truly who you're buying from? Like, what do these things look like? And there are so many use cases for the product that, while the idea is maybe around this forced labor, at the end of the day, there's so much added value behind it, beyond just the fact that you're being a good corporate citizen, right? I don't think anybody on this call likes the idea of forced labor. And so that's just step one of what is truly a much larger onion as you start to peel back the layers. And that, to me, is really exciting for our client base. It's exciting for us. It's exciting for the industry as a whole. I'm a brokerage nerd at heart. I grew up on the customs brokerage side of the business. And still, we run a large company today, but it's still probably my favorite part of the business is getting back in the weeds and doing some of the customs brokerage work. So this, to me, is just kind of hits two of my personal loves, the custom side and technology, and we mirror them together and are able to provide something for our clients that not a lot of people can do right now. And it's really exciting to see what even our own customers, as they see it, they're like, oh, we could do this, or we could do that, or this is allowing us to do these other things that we weren't even thinking about before we got involved. And I think the list, as our partnership grows, as our partnership with our customers grow, continues, will just expand and truly blossom into something that's much larger than what it is today.
Definitely. So, Amy and Adam, outside of what we've already covered today, what do you think are the most significant challenges companies face today in achieving trade compliance, and how can technology help alleviate these challenges?
You want me to take it first?
Sure.
I'm happy to ride the coattails of your last answer a little bit, because this is we wouldn't be here if we weren't big nerds at heart. I have a genuine love for this business, for this industry, and it's been a personal passion of mine to help elevate trade compliance, help evolve it for the next generation of trade nerds, because trade compliance today doesn't look like what trade compliance looked like when I started 24 years ago, and it's not what it's going to look like 24 years from now, right? So I'll start by saying, even though we've already touched on it, I think it does bear repeating that one of the most significant challenges looming large in the minds of many importers is how they're going to comply with the overwhelming volume of new regulations, the increased scrutiny when it comes to this product level information, not just in the United States, but everywhere. Technology, particularly AI and machine learning, can be instrumental here. That said, there is still relatively little awareness that technologies exist to help companies achieve the insights that they need to be compliant. So that's challenge number one, right? A lot of the things that we're doing, the things that we're doing here at Altana, I didn't even know to dream about 10 years ago. Like, I didn't even think, it never occurred to me that these things would be possible. Now here they are. And I'm not alone, right? I work in it every day now, but there's a lot of us out there that don't even know that these things are even possible. So that would be the first struggle. Now, another struggle applies to the smaller and the mid-sized companies. These are companies that may not have the resources or the access to these new technologies, but they are still expected to comply. And that's another reason I'm so in love with our partnership with Scarbrough, is that you've got companies of all sizes that you work with, and we can make this advanced technology available to everybody. AI is still really expensive. Compute power is still really expensive. And so these tools tend to be really expensive, which prices some of those small, mid-sized guys out. But this is a way that we can make it affordable, or at least accessible, so that they can try to exercise advanced reasonable care. And then I'll say, the last thing that I'll say, I mean, there's plenty of challenges, no shortage of them, obviously, but the final one that I'll mention is the struggle that trade compliance managers everywhere are experiencing when it comes to evolving from what was mainly a reactive function, right? We were at the end of the chain. We just facilitated stuff across borders. I'm not trying to diminish it, but that's really where a lot of us lived. And now, because of these new regulations, we're now being moved into a strategic role, and we're not really equipped to be successful there. And I know that AI and advanced technologies can and will elevate the role of trade compliance and the role that trade compliance plays inside our companies. So this working through Scarbrough, getting access to this information, knowing more about where your products are actually coming from can make you a more strategic player inside your own company, which excites me to my core. I can keep going, but I'll stop.
No, that's
I
fantastic.
think you hit on something that's vitally important, though, is historically compliance, like we talked about, has always been this idea of a cost center, or it's been this idea of, right? And everyone was focused on logistics because that's where the spend was, right? And obviously us being on both sides of this conversation as both a company that's a freight forwarder and a customs broker, but at the end of the day, from a customs perspective and a compliance perspective, I think you nailed it. It's finally elevating that group to say there's more out here that this group can provide beyond just this is the tariff number, this is what the duty rate is. Call me when you have the next one, right? And I feel like that's how compliance was unfortunately treated for a long time. And I think customs is coming out asking more of that. And so this is truly kind of putting those people at the table. And then you tack on new tech and new, it's not perfect. But it's new, and it's getting in at the ground floor and truly helping develop what this looks like as customs comes and knocks on your door at some point and says, what are you doing to prevent this? What are you doing to make sure your supply chain's clean? It's like, this is what I'm doing. We get that not everyone's perfect, and it's not practical to be perfect, but it is practical to be more than reasonable. And I think that's what we're starting to see, especially with Altana, with what our customers are being asked for. And this is only going to grow, right? Governments, it seems today, kind of try to leave politics to the side of, in general, become more nationalistic. And with that, they say, how do we make sure that what's coming in is what we believe is right? Whether you personally do or not, it's a different conversation. But I think you see it, like you said, in the EU, you see it here. We're getting ready to see it in Canada. And these things are just going to continue to happen. And so this is just the start of what I think is going to be a very long run of increased scrutiny on product moving around the globe. And product has moved around the globe for the ages of time, and it's only going to continue. So how do we truly stay in front of that? And that's what this is all about. And that's why we're excited about it. That's why it kind of feels like the beginning of a new frontier of compliance, which is fun.
So you pretty much answered my next question in that one, Adam. Thank you. So we'll move on to the last one here because we are getting a little short on time. I think actually we're a little over. So Amy and Adam, what advice would you give to companies that are hesitant to adopt AI or those who are unsure of where to begin their transition?
You want to go first, or you want me to?
I'm happy to. I had two different perspectives here, so this will be interesting. This is what I spend the bulk of my time doing, really, is talking to other trade compliance people, helping demystify this ambiguous, amorphous thing called AI. And I've distilled it down to some really quick points for you. So for companies who are hesitant to adopt AI, or maybe they're unsure where they should start, my advice is pretty simple. I think it's important to start by considering your greatest pain points. What's causing you the most stress? What are causing the bottlenecks? Identify those areas in your operation where you lack this visibility, or where compliance risks might be lurking, or that are costing you the most, right? These are going to be your opportunities for impactful change. I have talked to companies who just says, oh, my CEO said every department has to start using AI, so that they can check a box and say they're using it. So my CEO said so, but where do I start? I don't know where to start. There's classification, there's audits, there's screening, there's all these things. So know the what you are trying to solve for first, and that will help determine the sort of solution appropriate for your business. Maybe you need a point solution. What I mean is something that handles one specific task, like I just need a classifier. I just need to be a screening tool. Or if you're looking for a broader solution that does more with goals that range from improving accuracy in your classifications or reducing operational costs or enhancing risk management or reducing your carbon footprint, like those are bigger solutions. But at least knowing the what will help you figure out where you should be. And then the last little piece of advice, and this is just really just to get you started, is starting small, being open to this idea of a pilot or a beta, some little project just to demonstrate AI's value in solving some of these specific issues for you and your business. This approach not only builds confidence in AI's capabilities, but it gets you comfortable with it, right? This is new for a lot of us. So it gets you a little comfort, and you'll see where it does well and you'll see where it doesn't do well. And that's where I would go back to something that Adam said, which is give it an opportunity or to go on this journey with us. AI is still new in general, so any solution you buy is not going to be perfect right out of the gate. You have to help build it. We have an opportunity to make it what we want it to be and what we want it to do for us. So give it that opportunity. So I'll stop there, but that's just a few high level ones.
I think from our side, talking to our customers is just saying, it's the age old adage, if I haven't been caught, I must not be doing anything wrong. Right. And while that exists, right, like, yeah, I sped to work this morning, so I didn't get caught, so I didn't do anything wrong. Well, technically I was still speeding, right? So and that's obviously a very simple idea behind this, but at the end of the day, that's truly what this is about. And it's about making sure you're doing the right thing when no one's watching, because someone is actually watching and you just don't know it. And I think that's maybe the thing that you have to constantly think about, right? It's like, you have to do the next right thing. And so that's what this is. And that's just about how do we start to do the next right thing over and over and over again until things get better and things get to a point where the technology is maybe caught up with kind of where we want to be, and it's truly acting as a supporting feature to what we're doing. And I think that's really the most important piece of this is how do we work with our clients and kind of start to educate and say, this is what this looks like. And it may not be pretty, and that's okay. Right? You didn't know. Maybe you should have, maybe you shouldn't have. Different conversation, different day. But at the end of the day, now that you know, what are you getting ready to do about it? And I think that to me is really what it comes down to. I know Allison spent a ton of time with our clients, kind of walking them through the system and just kind of watching their eyes go like this as they sit there and like, oh, this is almost, it's cool and scary all at the same time, right? And that's the stuff that I think people want to be involved in, and hopefully us compliance nerds at heart really get excited about.
Amy and Adam, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's definitely a fun adventure to be a part of. And if any questions come up after the webinar, shoot me an email to consulting@scarboroughglobal.com, and we'll do our best to help you out.